Revival. You guys are the revival. I wasn't here, so but that was the notes I gave him to tell you. So, and sorry, we didn't have a video, so I didn't get to actually watch it after. So, but
cool.
Right.
So this week we're concluding this series with living with expectation. And so, as you guys know, one of the things that I've been really diving into and doing a lot of studying on or staying in the know of is like Bible prophecy stuff, right? And so you have back in the day, Old Testament, and if you really read the Old Testament, it all leads back to the prophecy of pointing towards who coming? Jesus, right? And so, and Jesus comes, and there's like this, and I put it up here, it's the Bible prophecy, guys. If you guys ever want to get on and listen to their podcast, it's like 3 or 4 different pastors, and they just lace it only in Scripture. And so if it doesn't align with Scripture, then they're not going to share their opinions of something different. Does that make sense? So it's really good. I've been listening to these guys a lot. Highly recommend it. You can do it on podcasts. They have it on YouTube. They have their own station, and so on the site there actually is some pictures and things like that they show that go along with like some different graphs and stuff too, if you're like a visual learner kind of thing. So it points all towards Jesus coming. And one of the things that is in there, it talks about within like the last days is like the 7 years or the last week and things like that. And so if you look at it, it goes back to a prophecy that was happening about Jesus coming, and he came right this time, and then there was 1 week left. There was 1 week left, and a lot of people miss it. It was purposely put in there because it talks about when that week is going to come in the future, right? And so, when you start to really dive into prophecy, scripture, and I mean, 100% of it's the only book that 100% has ever happened, that's ever come true, and it still was like in Daniel, Ezekiel, you got Revelations, you have Paul saying stuff. It talks about the future, and one of the things that Paul says was, do not be asleep, do not be awake, for the Lord commands you to be aware. The Lord commands you to be aware of what's happening, right? This isn't a fear push, you guys, but this is you need to know. Because I think a lot of churches, they don't push and they don't talk about like why all these events are happening right now, and some people can't even explain why this went from here to here in this crazy shift, because it's completely spiritual, and it completely is lining up with the prophecies of what Jesus and other people from the Old Testament were going to say was going to happen in the future, right? And so it starts talking about a lot of different things, like one of the first things that has to happen is Israel. We've kind of talked about this before, but short synopsis of it is Israel. It says God's going to scatter his people from their land, right? Well, in I think it was back in 70 AD, I think it was. Yeah, 70 AD. Jesus predicted the destruction of the temple. And in 70 AD, the destruction of the temple happens, right? And then he starts talking about that's when they were conquered, and a lot of it, if you don't know, that America is actually based on Roman law. You guys know that?
Yes.
You did? Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Nice.
so it starts to talk about in the future, like in Rome, in Jewish, right? We're kind of right this thing, right? And so they were kind of they're kind of bashing at each other all the time back in the day. And so it talks about in the future that someone from the West is going to start creating peace. What do you guys see? What do you guys hear right now about what's going on in the world? Do you guys stay up on that at all?
Violence.
There's violence.
violence.
So 2 weeks ago,
$6.
and it talks about these 10 kings. It talks about these 10 kings that are going to end up getting all this power, and they're going to then appoint a leader who's end up going to be the who? The Antichrist, right? Because all these things are going to happen. So it starts to push over with coming from the West. Well, Trump just created the Board of Peace, and he has invited 50 countries, and 27 of them have already agreed to it. So there's already this Board of Peace that's going to happen, right? But if you start listening to these guys, you understand that there's certain cultures that just don't live by peace, right? Like the Muslim culture, like Islamic, right? It doesn't live a lot by the peace, because in their Bible it says for their ending they have to kill all of the Jews. And in our Bible it says when they try to do that, God is going to erase anybody that attacks them, right? But before we get to that stuff and being in the know of all of it, in 1948, no one ever thought, this is the first time it's ever happened in history. In 1948, Israel became a country again, because it said God will then bring all of his people back into the city. And now they're all filtering back in, okay? So one of the things, there's a lot of different things, a lot of prophecies that have already happened. You have basically the increase of knowledge and travel. So in Daniel 12:4, it starts talking about, like, back then, like, north, and it talks about in the Bible, like, Magog and Magog, whatever. And so it's talking about this leader. And so now they're starting to change all the translations in the Bible. And what they're saying is, it doesn't come from, it's called Rosh. It's a Hebrew word, Rosh. And everybody thought it was going to be coming from, when this war was really going to start taking off, was going to come from Russia, right? Because of the thing. But Rosh actually means a leader, the head of something. And the only person they talk about back then was from Magog, and that was in Turkey. And so if you start thinking about, it says from the north, this is going to happen in the future, right? So, and I'm telling you these things, you guys, because I want you to be in the know and be aware of things when you see them on the radio, or you see them here on the radio, or you see them on TV, or you see them on social media. Because what's going to happen is a lot of people who are Christ followers are going to get deceived. It says right in the Bible, a lot of people will be deceived. Brothers will grow cold against each other, brothers and sisters. And when that happens, whether it's during our time or not, you guys need to be aware, because I think a lot of it's been lost in translation, in passing it forward. A lot of times it doesn't get passed forward because nobody wants to talk about the end. But for us, that's amazing, right? Like, Jesus came back right now, like, let's go, bring me up. But there's a lot of people, and God's trying to really try to gather as many people as he can. You can see that. Nick Jonas up on stage. That whole meetup with Brandon Lake just happened randomly as in like a studio, a recording studio, and he's like, hey, I want to do a song with you. And then they created 2 songs together.
And then 500 people got baptized because of it.
Yep.
Crazy.
So I was talking to Jamie in the back of the room, and he said, yeah, you see all these big secular names that are starting, you guys see this transition, right? It's going both ways. It says in the Bible, you start to see a separation. And if you don't feel that separation, you will, because it's happening, right? Now, God's timing is a lot different than ours. It also says in the Bible, we don't, even Jesus says, we don't know the day and time that, he's going to come back. Not even the Son knows, which is Jesus at that time. Only the Father knows. He says that in the Bible, right? But if you follow prophecy of what's happening, you'll start to see that a lot of these things are coming to fruition a lot lately. A lot going on with the wars, and we've talked about wars in the past, but there's other things that needed to happen. There needed to be technology. There needed to be a way for people to travel. And so when they traveled back then, they travel 100 miles, 200 miles. That was a lot for them. Now we can hop on a plane and fly over to the Middle East. And so it says that the increase of knowledge, and so the knowledge of people has grown substantially since this time. So that's in Daniel 12:4. it starts talking about what's going to happen with the modern era of advancements in technology and things. And then Christians will begin to be, the gospel will begin to be preached in every nation and people in Matthew 24:14. And that's been increasingly happening in all countries. The gospel is being preached. And it's not just so much, it's physically people are there all the time, but they have access to what? The phone, right? So they can get any preachings and everything from that too. So that's part of the technology. It talks about cryptocurrency having to becomes one crypto during the tribulation. And so in order for that to happen, that currency has to be getting used everywhere. What currency can be used everywhere in the world?
Gold.
What digital currency?
Crypto.
Like cryptos.
Bitcoin.
Cryptos, Bitcoin, all that, right? It's now being used everywhere. And it's still funny that they still don't know who the guy was or who actually came up with that. They have an idea. But isn't that just kind of like random? Like God's like, you know what? Let's move this thing along a little bit, right? They still can't truly identify who created that. So we start to get into the warning signs of what I want you guys to be aware of. So it's funny because a couple different things that I've heard recently about people that have read, like a lot of like Jewish people, they know the Old Testament. A lot of them don't know the New Testament. They don't study that part of it. And so the things that they're doing, the things that they're saying are actually leading to prophecies that are going to be fulfilled. So one of them is it says that Jesus is going to come in from the east, he's coming on a mountain, and he's going to come in, and he's going to come into the city. And so there was a gate there, and back hundreds and hundreds of years ago, there was a ruler that was there, and it was like this big arch. I wish I had a picture.
I know.
This big arch, and he goes, no, it's not going to happen. So what does he do? He puts and fills that whole arch in with cement, like he's going to stop Christ from coming through there. Well, one of the things that just got found out was it talks about in the end times that there's going to be a lot of shaking, earthquakes, right? There's going to be some shaking and things like that. And that door, that entrance there, comes from here, right? And that door is on top of an earthquake fault line. So when that shakes, when that happens, an earthquake, what's going to happen to that? And he's going to do what? He's just going to walk right through, right? And it's just so funny because people I don't want you guys to be naive. I don't want you guys to be in the misunderstanding of, wow, like, why is this happening? Or why are these things happening? Like, we want you to stay grounded and rooted in what Christ has done in your lives, because there's going to be people who are going to be scared. There's going to be people who are going to freak out. There's going to be people that are going to make different decisions based on a lot of deception. The Antichrist is going to be the king of deception, right? It says in there, he creates a world peace, and then halfway through this term, he breaks it. And then he starts to, and the whole mark of the beast comes in. If you're a believer, you won't be here for that. Okay?
And the biggest thing is, you guys, is that we're not saying this is happening tomorrow. We're not saying this is happening in 100 years because we don't know, right? We're just saying keep your eyes open.
Yep.
Because something is happening, but we don't want you guys to be completely blind to it and say, well, I had no clue, right?
And like I said, at the very beginning, Jesus commands us to keep watch, right? And so, sorry, another thing.
Sorry,
go ahead.
you're going up. Wait, hold on.
Go ahead.
Okay, I was going to have you guys turn to the First Thessalonians 5:2-3.
Oh yes, thank you. Sorry, I wasn't
I'm getting really excited.
I'm so passionate about this part of it because it's like, if you guys know that a certain day, if you actually know a certain day is coming, it's like the best day, like Cedar Point trip, right? Like you guys are really excited about that.
It's a preparation for
It's
that
a
day.
preparation, right? And you get excited for it. And all of God's children should be excited it's sad at the same time.
So
because
it's-
there's a lot of people that haven't heard this message and haven't heard the story of the love of Christ. And so that's why we're here. That's our mission.
And it's like if you had like a championship game, right? You wouldn't just go and play that game. You have practices and other games that lead up to that. And that's what we're telling you, is we're trying, as leaders, trying to prepare you for that championship game so that you do the best you can, right? We don't want to just throw you in there and be like, good luck on Judgment Day, right? No, we want to make sure that you are fully prepared, eyes open, ready to go. So.
Yeah, and Revelation is wicked crazy, because it's like, you read some of that stuff and you're like, what, a demon with 4, like 7 heads and 4, you're like, it's like, it's unfathomable to think about, unless you think about it like a movie, right? But, so in 1 Thessalonians, who's got that open? 1 Thessalonians 5, 2 through 3? Matt?
Sure. For you know quite well that the day of the Lord's return will come unexpectedly like a thief in the night. When people are saying everything is peaceful and secure, then disaster will fall on them as suddenly as a pregnant woman's labor pains begin, and there will be no escape.
Okay, so you got a lot to unpack there, right? So one of the things that these guys talk about in their podcast stuff, and I've heard from different sources as well, like credible sources, is everybody's gonna be talking about what? Peace, 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 right? And what do we hear right now? Peace, 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 board of peace, right? I'm not saying that this is it, okay? But I am saying, look at the warning signs. God commands us to keep watch on it, right? And so they're saying peace, peace, peace. And then the Lord will come like a thief in the night. It's just gonna be random the time. We don't know the day and time, and it's just gonna come. And we don't want you guys to be in that position of feeling like, oh man, like
I could have done better.
I could have done more for him, right? You don't want to also, when he's separating the goats and the sheep, you want to be a part of the sheep, by the way. The one on the left hand, the goats, he's going to say, depart from me, for I never knew you. And it talks about, on the right hand, come, good and faithful servant, into the place that is your inheritance, that I have created for you since the beginning of time. So God created that. And when he talks about it for being, when the goats, he's saying, go to the place of, I wish I had the verse, damnation, but he is specifically doesn't say that he created that. God never intended for you to go to hell. He doesn't want you to be there. And that's why Jesus came, because it says if you want to get into this place, you have to literally walk over my dead body. Because he put that in place for us to not have to go there, right? And so it talks about, you read it with the birthing pains. And it talks about birthing pains in there a couple times actually in the Bible. And the birthing pains of it is what happens, okay, moms, it's Mother's Day, what happens with birthing pains? Do you guys, is it like you just get pregnant and you have a baby, or like what happens towards the end?
It's horrible.
Wait, what do you get? Like what tightens? Contractions, right?
Yeah, contractions.
Yeah.
It's like the worst cramps you can ever have in your life. Like
Anyone get ugly boys, so you're gonna foot cramp?
you can't walk.
No, but the kidney stones are
Or how about the calf cramps? Have you ever had that where it feels like your muscle moves and you're like,
Like
ah!
an arch of your foot.
Yes.
Kind of
You
like
can't-
100.
You can't be comfortable and you're trying to undo it and then your toe just goes.
I've seen some videos of, they actually put these, they tried to do it at C3 conference, it wasn't as good, but they literally put this whole thing over top of the guys, and it's supposed to simulate like contractions, and literally the guys are like crying, they're like,
Except for one guy's that wasn't working.
yeah, the one, yeah.
He was like,
Well, that's a C3 one though. But I'm talking about like this one that was like an intense one. It was like at like a medical place because like if something happened, like they could be there for him.
And they only turn up to like 3 and the guy's already crying.
Oh, yeah.
They don't even turn
Yeah.
it up all the way.
Oh.
So Jesus and how he delivers his message in his word is he delivers through people. And when this is being talked about with the birthing part of it, it's about contractions, about the birthing pains of it. And so what happens is at first the contractions are small, right? And then by the time they start to they're more frequent and they're heavier at the end. It's a lot worse at the end, pain-wise, And so we're watching these contractions of, oh, there's peace, no peace. There's peace, no peace right now, right? We're watching all these things happen like, oh,
And they're spaced out.
there's war. Now there's no war. Now the strait's being taken over and our gas prices are going crazy high, right? We're going through these waves of these contractions and they keep getting bigger. If you really look at it, there's like a chart too. And so one of the things that is, this is interesting, is the temple, it talks about, this is the next prophecy that we need to be aware of. The next thing to keep our eyes open for. Is it talks about there needs to be a rebuilding of the temple. Okay? Well, right now in the temple spot, there is, let's say right here, right now, there is this. This is the Dome of the Rock. This is a Muslim worship area that was built right where this temple needs to go. So El Esqua, I think it is like the leaders over there, and they're like, there's like this, there's a holy war going on over there for who should have this place. Okay, and that's what a lot of this argument and fighting has been about over there. I don't know if you guys know, is it's always been about Israel, and there's always been wars that have happened and all these different things, but they couldn't pinpoint that it was getting closer to Christ's return because other things hadn't come to fruition yet in the prophecies, which now have. Okay, so there's been missiles flying around here, kind of getting close to hitting this building and all stuff like that, right around it. God's let a couple through. But what did they do? So we're like, well, they had to get rid of this in order for this temple to be built. What they do, they went down in the basement, and recently, and they built this mosque thing, basically a place to go worship, right? And when they did that, all of these walls are starting to crumble already. Their foundation's starting to crumble. So that's one way, if this thing collapses, or now it has a very weak, we always say have a strong foundation, this is a very weak foundation now. So, not saying that's going to be the way it happens, but this is another step towards God's purpose, right? And so, the next thing that is, so we want, to keep your guys, and we can talk more about this stuff, and there's a lot to it, but what the main purpose of all this too is with your living inside out, is understanding and knowing what's going on, because people are going to ask questions, especially when there's fear, right? Like, the first thing we talk about is, oh, gas prices are jacking up, right? But what if we start getting some war stuff going on over here? Like, no one's ever really challenged the U.S. in a long time, but it's some challenges going on right now towards the U.S. And so I'm not saying that in fear, okay? I'm saying be aware. Because the next thing that has to happen, and this would be the next prophecy that would be what to start looking for, is if this temple falls and they start thinking about building the one that needs to be built. That's prophesized for the end times, right? Once this happens, there's a lot on this I can pull you off to the side. We can talk about more, talk about it on Wednesday night groups. There's a timeline that starts to tick. Okay? So in preparation, because I'm looking at the time. Yep. Okay. Because I know you could go on and on about this. Turn to Matthew 24, 37, 39. Hey, April or Danielle, can one of you guys grab me? There's a Holy Moments book on the bookshelf.
Holy moment?
Yeah, it's white and like little gold speckles. Other one.
Daniel, you got it?
Oh, thank you.
You got it? Yeah. Can you read it out loud for us? Oh man.
When the Son of Man returns, it will be like a blizzard Noah's day. In those days before the flood, people were enjoying banquets and parties with weddings right up to the time Noah entered his boat. People didn't realize what was going to happen until the flood came and swept them all away. This is the way that it will be when the Son of Man comes.
So everybody knows the story of Noah, right? What happens? God's like, is that Noah's Ark? Yeah. And how many people survived that flood? Eight so his family, God basically says everyone is wicked. It's everybody in this earth is wicked, and they found one person that wasn't, and that was Noah. And nobody, and it talks about there was parties, and everybody was having a good time, everybody's stressed out, everybody's having all this different stuff, right? But they're living their lives and not even paying attention. And like a thief in the night, God just floods the earth. And it's the same, if you read it, this is not the first time things like this happen. God uses ordinary people to change motions of time. And this is a replication of what's going to happen. This is another story of what's going to happen. Now, is God going to flood the world? No, he's going to. It tells you in there what he's going to do, and you can read it on it. But it's the same thing we want you guys to, be aware, because there's a lot of people hurting right now, and you guys have an answer that they don't know. So bringing a friend in, bringing them to an event, whether it be Cedar Point or to camp, is a way that we keep saying be bold, right? Like I had my best friend here last night for the daddy-daughter dance. Never thought he'd step foot in this church. But my heart is like the Holy Spirit's like just reaching out, and it says that at the end, like towards the end of time, like the Spirit is going to actually increase inside of you. You're going to feel more strong with wisdom. You're going to get this, that superpower that you have inside of you is going to increase. It's going to advance.
Yeah, sorry, I don't want to cut you off. But also another thing you guys can do is, okay, bring your friends here, great. But how about behaviors, right? I'll be the first to admit there are many times a day that I'm like, I did not handle that like a Christian, right? Maybe yelling at my kids, maybe the way I reacted to a friend or whatever. How many of you guys on a daily basis have those moments? Exactly. The difference though is you had the remorse after. That feeling, right? Like, oh shoot, I need to apologize. That's the difference. So I wanted to quickly talk to you guys about, like, to bring this all in, right? We wanted to tell you this stuff because we don't feel it's being taught enough, right? All these things that are happening. And we got a lot of kickback from people, like, oh, you shouldn't tell them about that. Don't scare them. But you guys, how are we great teachers if we don't tell you this stuff? And then all of a sudden, like I said, on Judgment Day, you're standing there and you're like, I had no idea. I messed up. I wasn't prepared, right? Some of you are still questioning, is there really a God? You guys are all on different aspects of this faith journey, right? But we want you guys to come to us if you have questions or still concerns or doubts, right? So yesterday we went to my aunt's funeral. Some of you have heard me talk about this book, right? Holy Moments. About how my uncle sent it to me randomly 4 years ago now, right? 4 years ago. Changed our marriage, changed our outlook on life. It's the reason we are standing here today in this room teaching you guys, is because a book was sent to us in the mail. That's the way God put himself into our lives. This book, you guys, is all about acts of kindness. I'm telling you. How many of you have talked about that in school? Millions of times, right? Acts of kindness. Holy moments, that's the way you see it. Giving someone a smile.
Changes your complete perspective. Like her uncle, like they have, like I was trying to figure out, I was watching him and I was like, if something were to happen with Rach and I, like if I were to like lose my wife, who I have a foundation of Christ in, we have this layer of just thick pavement, right? But then we've created this really solid relationship right above it in pavement as well. This one here, if you keep that one firm, you can tell, I was watching him the whole time, but because his foundation is so strong, but that layer with his wife was just crushed, was cracked. But he didn't go all the way to the bottom, right? He stopped at Jesus' foundation. And he says, during his mourning, right? He's like, we know where she's at. Definitely know where she's at. And he says, in the book, the very first part that it talks about is, what if someone in this room was Jesus? What if someone in this room was Jesus? How would you act? How would you, in any room that you go into, always think that Jesus is in that room?
Like if you go to a party, it will change your perspective, you guys. If you walk into a party and everyone's going crazy, right? And you think, oh, Jesus is in this room. How would you act differently? Like, I know I would.
Because he is in like every room, right? But physically, if someone in here was physically, because a lot of people work physical, right, and seeing things, think of it that way. Think of Jesus being in that room wherever you go, whether you're shopping, and then this book enhances that by having you get a different outlook on how to handle different situations. We went during a crazy time for spring break for Disney.
Yeah.
And we had gone to Disney before and we were fighting the whole time. It was miserable.
Oh, we had the
And
worst time.
this last time when we went,
We read this on the way down.
it was awesome. Our kids had a different perspective. We had a different perspective. She was reading it the whole way down. And whether you read this or not, we strongly suggest it or listen to it or whatever, it's something that everyone needs to hear, needs to understand. It's going to change your life.
Tons of copies back there, so grab one on your way out. You guys, it's a fast, easy read.
Yeah, it's a small book.
And when I read these kind of books, I'm not gonna lie, I usually get really bored, and I was so into this.
Yeah.
But
Less stories in there.
yeah, and it's like little things. It tells you it's the same thing as what we were talking about with little tiny moments, right? That start building up. It's the same thing about holy moments, you guys. They start little. You can do one single holy moment a day. Like we talked about, right? Helping someone pick up books off the hall, or waving hi to someone that you've never waved hi before, making their day, right? And then it builds on it. You get used to that one, and then the next day you're doing 2, and the next day you're doing 3, and it just keeps building, and then all of a sudden your whole day is holy moments. What an amazing feeling that is, right? It's not just filling your cup, it's filling others around you. And that's the way to spread what God wants us to do. What? Love one another. And that's what you're doing. It doesn't have to be going on mission trips all the time or feeding the homeless, right? Because those simple little smiles or kind gestures can fill someone.
So like our challenge for you today is whether it's a mom, aunt, grandma, or some woman figure in your life, just tell them how special they are to you.
Oh, I
Like-
was actually gonna grab those flowers.
Like we've got some flowers out there that you get stuck up on the windows. You guys have seen them. Rachel put them together. Just a way to express how you feel about that womanly figure in your life, right? And give them a hug. Just say thank you. Because Rachel showed me a video, and she was like, if you can't remember, husbands, if you can't remember why you should be nice to your wife today, just remember the size of this epidural needle, and it was this long, right? And that's what they put into their back to numb their legs so they get less pain. But it was this long, right? Yeah. Yeah. And I remember I had to get kicked out of the room and they put it in there, and they said, you have to stay very still, because they literally go right next to your spine. They could paralyze you. It's just, that was like her moment. She was freaking out.
Brian, don't screw with me and needles right now.
So remember what your parents have done for you, or whoever that is in your life, to take care of you. And it could be someone that has raised you outside of your parents, right? They love you, they take care of you. Just honor them today. Okay? Awesome. So Rachel's going to pass around some of those flowers. We're going to do that. And then you want to kind of just do the questions in here today, Rach? As we're doing it?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're a small group.
Do the questions in here, guys? Want to?
We'll do it. We should do it on the couches.
Oh, we can go on the couches.
You guys want to go on the couch?
Yeah,
it's more comfortable.
Fine.
Yeah, boy.
Only for you.
Thanks.
All right, all of us are going to go on the couch room.